Evening. I was just trying to see if I can see the list of participants, and then you said, Gurleen, can you hear me now? Awesome. Thank you, Lata. Thank you, Gurleen. So tell me a little bit more about yourself since you seem to have both of you have logged in a little before time. Thank you so much for doing that. Mostly people are joining in late. Tell me a little about yourselves. What is it that you do? Where are you? Nice. Nice. Tell me a little bit more about your business. And Lata, what do you freelance as? Very interesting. Very, very nice, Lata. Is that social media marketing or traditional marketing or both? Very nice. Good. Do you know how to get in touch with me? Is there information that is shared with you? Hi, Medha. If not, I don't know if you guys can see this. I just sent my number. Lata, if you can see it, please be in touch with me. Thank you so much, Team Creator. Okay, so we're just going to wait for a few more people to join in and for it to be time for the people who are going to log in just on time. In the meanwhile, happy Women's Day. Don't forget, every day is Women's Day. Today is just something which is ratified and validated by other people. Otherwise, every single day is our own day. Okay. Interesting. Let me just see on my phone as well. As we wait for others. Oh, it shows me as live on my LinkedIn also, and I'm looking at it on a different thing. Yes, that's what they said. It's live on LinkedIn. Okay. We will keep the phone here gently. Team Creator, just give me a go ahead when you feel that I'm ready to start. I will be able to start right then and there. Guys, have I frozen on the screen for you? Keep the phone here gently. Okay, brilliant. Just give me a quick heads up. Have I frozen by any chance? Because I seem to have frozen on my screen. Okay, I'm going to just stop this and then start back again. Lata, Gurleen, Medha, can you guys see me, hear me, talk? Or am I still frozen? Okay, we will try again. You can hear me? Okay, I think that's the most important thing, that you can hear me. and we are going to talk about emotional intelligence for women in the boardroom. Actually, if you really look at it, and perhaps any of you could hear me when you do get to see me. You can hear me, but the video is not there. Sorry, just stay there. I'm going to try this once again. Okay, is this better? Am I audible, visible, both? Is it still one? If not, then I will follow Team Creator's advice and refresh my screen. Okay, great. Thank you, Gurleen. So, everyone, welcome. My name is Shalu Butcher. That's Bhucher, not Butcher. I promise not to butcher you, or at least my aim is to make sure you guys have a relaxing enough conversation, discussion. Hi, Sunita. Call it what you will, at least one way. I really would like it if you guys shot your questions at me rather than me standing here and giving you a discourse. I don't want to do that. I do want to talk about my experience as well as my learnings about women in the boardroom and what emotional intelligence means for us. So, even if you're not in a boardroom currently, even if you're running your own business like Gurleen and Lata are, and Sunita, I don't know too much about you, Medan, I don't know too much about you, but this is about how do you leverage your emotional intelligence. No, Gurleen, it's not applicable only for enterprise based companies. It's for anyone, anywhere, any woman. Actually, emotional intelligence is equally leveraged by women as well as men. Men seem to have the short end of the stick when it comes to emotional intelligence. It is very widely touted and researched and shared that women are more emotionally intelligent than men are. So if men have brawn, women have emotional strength. That's an equal world where we've got a balance of what and where both are required. Although I don't necessarily believe that women are not physically strong, I believe we are. Um, Having said that, is emotional intelligence for women in the boardroom applicable only for enterprises? No. You could be the owner of your own business and have only one person employed with you, and emotional intelligence is still as important. You could be a freelancer, as Lata shared she is, and have nobody reporting into you, and you can still leverage emotional intelligence to your advantage to create great relationships, to ensure that there is longevity in relationships, and to make sure that you're not only are you productive, but you're creating a productive, happy environment around you. Emotional intelligence, I'll start out with that, is not just about, oh, how am I feeling? I'm feeling good, I'm feeling bad. No, emotional intelligence is you being aware of who you are, how you're feeling, what is it doing to your body, and what is the impact on the people around you. So, Sunita, it's equally applicable at home, anywhere, on playgrounds, in schools, on airplanes, metros, buses, call it what you will. Emotional intelligence is a skill, is an art, both, that you can use anywhere. Let me share examples. Somebody is being too rude to you in the metro. Use your emotional intelligence to choose, do you want to stay away from it or do you want to engage with the person who's being rude? Maybe they're having a tough day. Very interestingly, just in that example, our domestic staff who comes in and goes out, she also works for somebody else. And she was sharing about this lady. Now, the girl who comes and works with us is unfortunately widowed at a very young age. So she's forced to work for her children. She goes to work for another lady who is highly irritable, to say the least. And some of the things that she says to this young girl who comes and works in my house are appalling. Like, when I heard them, it felt as if I had fire coming out of my ears. Either way, when this girl was complaining to me about that lady, I kept listening and listening and listening because she also obviously needs a place to vent. And at the end of it, I just said, do you know that she might actually be dealing with some issue in her own life? She might be emotionally disturbed. She may have gone through a lot of strife herself. And it struck this girl that, oh my God, I never thought of that from my end. Emotional intelligence is available to everyone at every age. It is available to everyone in every class, walk, status, strata of society. It is available to every gender, or people who choose to not identify with any gender at all. Emotional intelligence is a skill and art that can be used anywhere. Why is it so important, especially in places like the boardroom, especially in places of leadership, especially if you're an entrepreneur? Because it helps you stop yourself from reacting, and slowly and steadily it starts to move you into the zone of responding. Let's say you're in a relationship. So I see that we seem to have more entrepreneurs. Sunita and Medha, if you would just tell me a little about yourself, and anyone else who's logged in, if you'd like to just share. And Team Creator, please do keep an eye out on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So if there are any questions, any thoughts, any suggestions and shares over there, I can get to know about them. Um, Imagine, oh, nice, Sunita, you're a homemaker, and Medha, you're a product manager. So we have a great mix. We have an entrepreneur, we have a product manager, we have a person who's a professional striking it out on her own, and we have a homemaker. And the beauty of it is, in every area, emotional intelligence is required. So I'm going to just change my stance a little bit. So move it from just talking about women in the boardroom to women everywhere. Um, Naturally or by nature, we have been granted the gift of being able to understand, express, and appreciate emotions more. Having said that, like I said earlier, it's not necessary that men don't understand them as well as us. I'm going to focus on emotional intelligence for women. Your ability to, Sunita, your ability to know what is required by a child at a certain time if you're a mother, your ability to deal with your domestic staff without taking on their pains and their tantrums on yourself, your ability to deal with mothers in law or any kind of in laws, a large part of that has to do with your emotional intelligence. Medha, when you say product manager, I'm assuming you're employed. Your ability to deal with your manager and his or her last minute requests, your ability to deal with your peers when they're not giving you the information on time, your ability to deal with your supervisors or your vendors and suppliers when you need something in a particular time, they're not giving it, and how well you get them to bring that information, that product, a document to you in good time is a product of your own emotional intelligence. Similarly, Gurleen, when you're dealing with bridezillas, not Godzilla, but bridezillas, how well you deal with it, how you listen to them, how you give them the space to kind of scream, and then go back to normal because it's their big day. That's also dependent on your emotional intelligence. And similarly, Lata, when you're marketing people's products and when you're helping them market out, you're actually touching upon and leveraging emotional intelligence and psychology to be able to create an ad or to be able to create a creative which pulls people. That's how emotional intelligence and understanding it can actually be applied in any place of life that you are in. You could be the CEO, you could be in the board, you could be just somebody who's just started out in their career. Your ability to be in a situation and in that situation realize, okay, I'm getting triggered by point X. This is what it's doing to my body. This is what it's doing to the tone of my voice, my facial expressions, my eye contact. And when I'm behaving like this is how it's actually going ahead and impacting the people around me. All of that is what emotional intelligence is. So just a quick background on emotional intelligence, since I have such diverse audience. It is thought that Daniel Goleman is the person who created, or is called the father of emotional intelligence. The truth of the matter is research on, I don't have anything against Mr. Goleman, I don't know him personally, but the truth of the matter is that study on emotional intelligence actually began way before Daniel Goleman put it on the map. What Daniel Goleman did was he built on the research of all the people before him, and he wrote a book and he made it popular. But people like Reuven Bar-On, people like Salovey and Meyer, these are two people. There were a lot more people who did a lot of work on emotional intelligence earlier, because what they said was there is what is known as the intelligence quotient or the IQ that can help you get a job. But it is definitely not what helps you sustain yourself in the job. It is not what helps you be liked in the job. It is not what helps you get the final promotion in the job, especially as time started to move on from just a pure focus on manufacture to now let's work with people. So when that happened, Howard Gardner too. Absolutely. Hello, Manish. Welcome. Thank you very much for reminding me, Mr. Gardner. Mr. Gardner's name. Absolutely. So there were a lot of people actually, not just these three or four that I named, who had been doing a lot of research on EI. Now, what all of them collectively, including Daniel Coleman, what they all found was that there are two broad areas when it comes to emotional intelligence. It's got to do with me, myself, and it's got to do with me with other people or my social awareness, so to speak. Daniel Goleman, of course, went on to write another book afterwards on social intelligence, but that's topic for another day, hopefully. Today, bringing it back into emotional intelligence, what is my relationship with myself? How well do I understand myself and know myself? So that's what's called self-awareness. Once I know and understand myself, what are my triggers, what puts me off, what I like, what I dislike, why I like it, why I dislike it, it moves on into, therefore, what can I do about it? So self-management. And then comes the whole piece around objectivity, impulse control. How do I really go about managing me with people? So the bridge starts to come into place. Then comes what is the impact that I have on people with my emotions, with my reactions, with my responses. And then finally comes, how do I gel with the people around me? How do I gel with the society around me? So that's the entire group orientation or the social aspect of it. If you are to look at how and what are some of the things you can actually do for emotional intelligence or to start building your emotional intelligence, I'll come to that, but I'll take a quick pause here and ask any questions, any thoughts that you have around what emotional intelligence is, why we should be emotionally intelligent, where all is it applicable, anything at all, and then I'll move into the how part of it. And if anyone, Manish, if you'd like to share. You want to know the impact of emotional intelligence, Medha? Oh, hugely so, right? So let me take an example. Okay, Medha, you're a product manager. Like, what's the measurable thing? Okay, great. So like there is intelligence quotient, there is something called the emotional quotient, which is the measurability that Medha is asking about. So Medha, impact and measurability would be slightly different. Measurability is how emotionally intelligent am I? And impact is therefore in different parts. Therefore, how do I impact other people? Or therefore, how can I create myself as a better emotionally intelligent person? So we'll come to that part of it. The measurability aspect around the emotional quotient, there are many tests. There are some free tests online also that you can take. My invitation is take them, and if you get hooked, get back in touch with me and I can help you do an in-depth, detailed analysis. So I'm also an emotional intelligence coach. Actually, I don't think I did my introduction, so I'll do it right at the very end. I am an emotional intelligence coach. One of the things that we do is we help you measure your emotional intelligence over 128 questions in different parameters. These tests cannot be rigged because they're random selection questions. So you can't say, I answered this there, so I have to answer this here. I have run over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of assessments over the last 2006, so 16 years. I've run so many assessments, and in all those assessments, I have not yet found someone who looks at their score and or their report and says, no, not me. When you sit down and you help them understand, or you ask questions which helps them see why their score is a particular way, I have not yet come across one person who says, you know what, this is who I am, but this is what my report is telling me. So can you measure it? Yes, you can. Is there a test? Yes, there are many tests. Is there a comprehensive test which does give you a detailed picture? There is one. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I will again write down my email ID here. I have already shared my phone number with you guys. You're more than welcome to reach out if you want to Yeah, if you want to get yourself measured on your emotional quotient. Does your emotional quotient and therefore does your emotional intelligence stay the same throughout your life? No. The reason why I say that so confidently is because as we go through life, incidents happen to us and they shape us. Experiences happen to us and they shape us. As we're shaping, some of us evolve into a certain being, some of us evolve into a certain other being. That being may be completely different from who we were as a child. Just go back and think about it for yourself. Are you the same, exactly the same as you were when you were a child or a teenager? No. I remember I used to be a very happy go lucky child, and then I transitioned into a teenager. So, you know how teenagers are usually like, no, I want to do my own thing. And then there was one point of time when I was a very angry human being, and now I am hopefully and thankfully back to being a calmer person. We all go through different stages of our life, and the stage of life that we are in, the experiences that we are going through, our mental state, our human conditioning, all of those things impact what our emotional state is now. When you measure your emotional intelligence, you will never find it to be a flat and exactly the same. You will find certain life incidents make your emotional intelligence or your emotional score dip. Certain incidents will make it go up. But is it a very high spike and low? No. It takes us some time to move the needle on how we are in terms of our emotional intelligence. Usually, it's not an overnight change unless or until we've gone through some sort of very traumatic or highly, highly joyous experience. One of the reasons why somebody might change drastically is becoming a parent. One of the reasons why somebody might, their emotional intelligence might dip very drastically is losing a really, really loved one. So those are the extreme cases where there are spikes in changing your emotional intelligence. Otherwise, it is a gradual process where you're able to either up and amp your emotional intelligence or bring it down. Because there are so many different factors that make up your emotional quotient, you will also find that you will have some which are clear strengths and some which are scope for work in progress. So you will find maybe you have 90% of your emotional quotient makeup is really high, but there might be one or two things which are trigger points and which might kind of bring your emotional score down. And that's perfectly fine. There is no perfect emotional intelligence score. There is no upper limit to how intelligent emotionally can you be. It's your ability to manage yourself and then take care of others around you that continues to move your emotional quotient upwards. I hope that answers your question and helps you with some more information about EI. Anything else that I can answer? I'm just going to take a quick look at the chat. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we'll move into talking about how can you build your emotional intelligence. Multiple ways coaching is required. Of course, if you don't have a coach, please reach out to one if you know somebody in your circle. If you don't, do a little bit of research. I'm just going to take a moment here to give you the difference between coaching and everything else. A good coach is not going to tell you what you need to do. A good coach is going to ask you questions so that you can think, you can get to the innermost reaches of your potential and you can pull your potential out. The job of a good coach is to walk with you as you walk, not to walk for you. So if I start to give you answers, if I start to give you solutions, please run in the opposite direction. If I ask you questions that will make you think as a coach, go for it. And that's only one aspect of it. But this session is not about coaching versus mentoring. So bringing it back, how else can you build emotional intelligence? A good way to do this is to keep a journal. I know you may have heard journaling, this, that, and the other. You're also more than welcome to reach out to me as to how do you keep and how do you maintain a journal, what do you write it in, and so on and so forth. I'll be happy to talk to you about that. In the journal, one of the things that you do mainly for emotional intelligence is you observe the incidents of the day. Good, bad, enabling, disenabling, you observe those. And in the moment, observe and then write down as soon as you can, how was your reaction emotionally? What was the thought that you got? How did you feel in your body with a combination of the thought and the feeling? And what was your verbal response to the other person? Even if there was no other person, what was your verbal response in the situation? Let's take an example. I'm going to go extreme and talk about the war in Russia and Ukraine right now. A lot of people are saying, ban Russia, do this, Russian people are bad, boycott them here, boycott them there. And there are people who are saying, I don't have anything to say to this, etc. Now you hear somebody saying, I think we should boycott the Russians altogether, and you have a lot of Russian friends, and you'd stand up and say, you're crazy. What's wrong with you guys? What have the people got to do with it? Is it not about the leaders, or is it just about, so you kind of take off because you kind of got triggered saying, oh my God, but I have friends there. There was a fear for your friends that got triggered by hearing, let's impose sanctions on the Russian people. So write that down. When I heard sanctions on Russian people, my first thought was, oh, my friends. I felt scared for them. And my verbal response to those people was shouting. My voice went up. My ears felt hot. So you can actually go ahead and write it down like that. Gurleen says that's a good idea, but often this is done end of day and then the reflection is biased. Do you feel that? So you have to also, Gurleen, I think that's a very fair point to ask. You have to know yourself a little bit at least. If you feel you're the sort that prefers to reflect immediately after an instance, please write it down that way. There's no wrong or right way about this. If you feel that you prefer to take collectively the incidents of the day and journal for yourself at the end of the day, then you do that. Whatever works better for you. Because remember, this is your emotional makeup. This is your emotional intelligence. What works for me may not work for Gurleen. What works for Gurleen may not work for Medha. What works for Medha may not work for Manish, and so on and so forth. The idea is find your own path. In anything, that's what I say. Find your own path. You don't have to mimic what other people are doing. Now, very interestingly, practicing AI also requires you to be honest, so the bias won't be there as such. Absolutely. That's what I said. This is about you. So you have to find the best fit. There's a very interesting talk on YouTube that I heard. And in that, they're talking about calming the mind. So this is by Sadhguru, in case anyone wants to listen to it. It just happened to me by chance, where he speaks about, and the mind is actually also the genesis of emotions, which is why I'm bringing that up here. He speaks about that one of the ways to calm the mind and therefore have a lot larger control over your emotions is to not mimic and imitate other people, among other things. So I'm only going to pick up that part of it. Don't worry about how other people are doing things. Figure out your own way, figure out your own path, and the one that works best for you. That also, by the way, is emotional intelligence, one part of it. Coming back, so we were talking about journaling. So write down how you're feeling. Do this every day, definitely for the next 21 days at the very least. It'll be great if you can make it a daily habit for the rest of your life. But every 21 days, actually at the end of every week, observe your pattern. You will start to see what are the things that trigger you. When a particular trigger happens, how do you behave? What is its impact on you? And once you start seeing the pattern, at the end of every week, just write down triggers, pattern, triggers, pattern. So just list them down. You'll be able to see. So for example, a trigger could be when anyone indicates that I'm not intelligent, the pattern would be I tend to go quiet. Or for somebody else, the pattern might be I start to get aggressive. Another trigger could be when someone starts to speak loud, I feel threatened physically. So the pattern is I feel threatened physically. The trigger is when someone starts to speak loud. So the idea is for you to be able to identify your own triggers, your own patterns. Do this for 21 days at the very least. 3 months is a great idea. Lifelong, perfect. You're definitely on your way to increasing your emotional intelligence for sure, because you'll be able to see all of this happening. That's one part. The other part is to actually invite feedback. Now, this may seem a little avant garde or a little, oh my God, what is she even saying? But ask for feedback on what people are observing about you. What are they seeing? How are they seeing you behave? If you've, I'm just going to write down the name of the tool here. If you've never heard of this, never read of this, please go and search the Johari window in Google. What the people who came up with the Johari window speak about is that there are two ways for us to improve ourselves and to build better relationships. One is receiving feedback, and the other is disclosure. So I'm going to talk about the receiving feedback part. The same Johari window also speaks about something which is a blind spot for me, which is something which you know or you observe about me over a period of time, but I'm not aware of because I'm doing it and I'm so deep and thick into it that I don't know about it. So let's say, for example, a blind spot for me individually when I was a little younger used to be that when I felt threatened, I would really start raising my voice and start becoming aggressive and move into the other person's physical space. Till somebody didn't point it out to me, I didn't know. It was a blind spot for me. But then someone who was giving me feedback shared that with me, saying, Shalu, I really want you to know that this is what happens when you're feeling threatened in any way, physically, psychologically. If you feel that your safety is at stake, your voice tends to go really loud and you start to move aggressively into the other person's space. Now, what happened was when I received that feedback, I actually did a little bit of reflection on the incidents of the past. I think it must have been about a month. I can't remember the duration now. But when I realized that that feedback was valid, I actually started to become more aware of it. And I stopped doing that. Similarly, in a relationship, if you're in a personal relationship and you realize that, or your partner, your spouse, your partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, call it what you will, they tell you that, you know what, every time I start talking about things like this, you become hyper. I'm not going to say anything like this to you. Now, without realizing it, they've given you feedback saying that it's not possible for me to share some of my problems with you because you become hyper. Now you can start observing yourself when your partner, when your spouse, whoever, when he or she starts to share something that has happened to them in the day, hold yourself back by not becoming hyper. Calm yourself down, take a deep breath, whatever you need to do. These are called techniques to handle your self-management, handle your emotions. Do whatever needs to be done, and slowly and steadily you will find that you have not only have you calmed down yourself, but you've also created this space for your partner to come and share their problems with you more openly and more often. Your relationship will become stronger. So that's another way. One is journaling, the other is feedback. I'm going to pause here and invite any questions or any thoughts. Absolutely. So we're going to come to skills in a bit, Manish. But thank you for prompting that up. We'll just come to skills. Any questions on how to do or how to handle feedback or how to invite feedback and how to use feedback for emotional intelligence? When you say staying calm and not reacting, is that we are meditating? So meditation is one way. Breathing is another way. So you know that somebody is going to trigger you. You know what your trigger is. You know you will get triggered. You know the other person knows your trigger, so they will poke you. So one of the ways you can do is just breathe. Counting down is another one. So here's a very good exercise that you can do to calm yourself. You start with one. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what you're doing is you're combining counting and breathing. What counting does is it brings your focus away from your trigger into the count, because you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 9, 8, 7. So you have to be careful that you don't skip a number, you don't repeat a number. And when you come to the bottom of back to zero, you take a deep breath. So you've now combined two things. Do I practice meditation? I do. I practice it quite a lot in the mornings and the evenings. One of the things that I do is healing, and a part of my healing is meditation. So I lead meditation groups in the morning as well as in the evening. So willy nilly, I end up doing meditation. Must you meditate? No. Must you sit down cross-legged and hold your breath and do this, that, the other? Not necessarily. One of the things that my teacher taught me, my spiritual teacher, his name is Patrick San Francisco. One of the things he taught me, and he taught me hopefully really, really well, is that when you are in a particular action, in a particular task, be there 100%. That is meditation in itself. Don't allow your mind to focus, to wander. Think about it. Anytime you're doing something which you really like, don't you forget the entire world around you? You could be making music, you could be making art, you could be cooking, you could be dancing. You just get lost in it, don't you? Like right now, I have no other thought except from talking to you guys because I'm getting such interesting questions. Are you in flow? Being in flow is meditation enough. How do you invite feedback professionally, especially from your direct reports? Hi, Priyanka. So first and foremost, do you have and I'm going to say something which may kind of make you go back. Do you have the gumption, the guts to ask for feedback? Because know that you could be asking feedback from your direct reports and they might just turn around and give you some harsh truths, which you may not have been ready for. So the first thing is, if you're ready to ask, ready to receive feedback, please don't hesitate to walk up to people and say, hey, you know what? I'd really like to be able to work better with you. And I'm also learning just as you are. I'd really like it if you were able to give me honest feedback that will help me develop myself as a better leader, as a better employee, as a better colleague, so that we can be productive together. I think that's the first step, is be ready to receive it. And the second step is ask for it. In between, and actually as a foundation of that, Priyanka, what is the most critical is for you to create a safe environment. A lot of times, especially in the Indian context, leaders may ask people for feedback, but what the people find is that once they've given the feedback, there is a repercussion on them. They don't feel safe. Trust goes away. So if there is no trust between you and your team, or vice versa between your team and you will find receiving honest, constructive feedback a very, very difficult task. I hope that helps. Ayush says, how do you let go if someone has hurt you? I've always been good to people and I expect the same thing back. But when that doesn't happen, I feel very disheartened. On one hand, I feel that the person should be punished, but on the other, I also feel that the person should be happy. How should I let go of these negative feelings? You're welcome, Priyanka. Ayushi, that's a very important dilemma that we all go through at some point of time or the other in our life, at least most of us. I'd really invite you to ponder on what I'm going to say next. When we have too many expectations from people around us, and when we have judgments of ourselves and other people, that's when we get hurt. What is being hurt? And would you be hurt by somebody who you have no expectation from? Like there's a person who's walking down the street. You wouldn't, right? Thank you for saying that. Yeah. So anywhere where there is an expectation in a relationship, and I don't just mean a romantic relationship or a sibling relationship, etc. Pardon me. Anywhere where you have a relationship, you will find, have an expectation, you will find that the expectation, when it's unfulfilled and unmatched, that's when hurt happens. One of the simplest and yet the toughest ways to avoid that disappointment, to avoid that hurt, is to not have expectations. I can promise you, I'm still working on not having too many expectations from the people around me. Is it an uphill task? Maybe. Is it difficult? Maybe. Is it a challenge and requires work? Yes, absolutely. I can promise you that. The other reason why we feel hurt is because there is something about ourselves that we are not happy with. So let's say, for example, I feel that I am not a very lovable person, which means that people don't come and pay attention to me, people don't love me, they don't show me importance, etc. Now, if anyone does something, and sorry, and therefore the expectation becomes somebody will show me love, somebody will care for me, somebody will show me that I'm important. When I don't find that, I feel hurt. I'm let down by myself and I'm let down by the people that I had the expectation from. And these are people who I usually care about, people who show me that they care about me. So a little bit of also self work, which means, and I know this is a very often repeated and a least understood term of self love, but it's about accepting yourself for who you are, the way you are, rather than putting yourself up against silly standards of society. But that's also conversation for another day. Does meditation help you solve this too? Okay, so meditation helps solve a lot of things simply because it helps you calm down the monkey mind. Remember this, your expectations come from the monkey mind, your disappointments come from the monkey mind, your emotions come from the monkey mind. So all of this, if it's happening with the monkey mind, and meditation helps calm that mind down, chitter chatter, chitter chatter, chitter chatter, the voice of the chitter chatter comes down, then automatically a lot of these things start to fall into place. You don't feel as hurt anymore, you don't feel as disappointed anymore, etc. Make sense? Good, I'm so glad. Ayushi, I'd put my number and my email ID. If you have further questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Team Creator, do I have more time? I can go on with this for the next 5 years. I have that much information and that much love for emotional intelligence. Team Creator, do I have the time? Sorry, how much time do I have? And in the meanwhile, while they're answering, okay, there's no specific end time. So any other question that I can answer? And that can help me kind of, cater to exactly what your needs are rather than go into the history, geography of emotional intelligence. Okay, so while I'm waiting while there are people who are thinking of the questions, remember this, what I said. IQ cannot be increased, can EQ be? Very, very important observation. Yes, EQ is a continual evolution, if you will. As long as you live, you can continue to evolve your emotional quotient. You can continue to work on your rough spots, polish them, let them shine and sparkle like a diamond, and move on to the next one, which may have dulled out. A lot of times that happens, something which was your emotional strength, you didn't pay attention to it. You started paying attention to other things, or you didn't pay attention to anything at all. And even that which was your strength starts to acquire a little bit of dullness. So the more you keep working on yourself, the more you become emotionally intelligent. There is no upper limit to being emotionally intelligent. Another thing correlated to that, Priyanka, IQ stops increasing, I think, by the age of 18. EQ, no limit. Absolutely no limit. I also personally feel that unless or until you have someone around you to guide you, we start with building our EQ in our 30s. So, we start becoming a little less brash, a lot more mature, if you will, in our 30s to our 40s. So, yeah. How do you manage expectations of different members of the family? Gurleen, I think one of the most important things about managing expectations of your family members is, number one, to sit down and understand what those expectations are and not be expected to be a mind reader. Create open communication, and that's where the skills are that I said. Create open communication pathways within the family members, actually with any stakeholder, family, clients, colleagues, partners, anyone. Establish rules of communication, establish your boundaries. It's very important to establish boundaries. I'm also going to write another term called gaslighting. Please read up on it. Identify if you are being gaslighted, identify if you are being a gaslighter. If you are, please stop immediately in both cases. Gaslighting is when, and in just a complete nutshell, gaslighting is when you are made to feel, or you're making the other person feel, that they are at fault or they are crazy. Another concept that you can read up on is narcissism. Narcissism and gaslighting often go together. A narcissist or a person with a narcissistic personality will end up being a gaslighter a lot of times. If you are being gaslighted, please set boundaries. This is okay for me. This does not work for me. Be assertive. Assertive communication is a very powerful skill when it comes to emotional intelligence. If you are being the gaslighter in your own family, in your own relationship setup, please understand other people's boundaries. It's so important. Listen well to them. Manish had mentioned listening skills are so important. Absolutely. Listen really, really carefully to them, and not just the words that you hear, but the emotions that are not being expressed in words. I'm so angry. You're just listening to that. You're not listening to what's the fear or the sadness underneath that anger. I'm very hurt. You're not listening to the insecurity underneath that hurt. Kind of like what I think Ayushi said. I feel hurt. Why do I feel hurt? Because I'm a little insecure about being alone. Maybe I'm not saying Ayushi is like that. I'm saying maybe for someone, being hurt comes from being insecure about being alone. So try to understand what the other person is not saying by improving your listening skills. Effective communication or effective assertive communication. Empathy is another huge skill. And I'll just talk about that. Listening skills, so critical if you want to build on your emotional intelligence. Uh, Priyanka, I'll just come back to your question about children. The importance of being able to assert yourself is also linked to how well you are able to take and stand by your own decisions. Similarly, empathy, the ability to be empathetic with the people around you will help you become a better decision maker. Your ability to listen to people around you will help you be more emotionally intelligent in that you will understand people from their perspective rather than your own. This is also co-linked to or interlinked to expectations, by the way. So Ayushi and everyone who struggles with managing expectations or who struggles with disappointments, etc., please know this. When you are empathetic with other people, when you understand people from their world and not just from your own, you also understand why they are unable to meet your expectations. I'll give you the example of someone who I was coaching earlier on in the day today. There's a lady who's extremely emotional and extremely expressive, and there's a gentleman. And some of you are going to think, oh God, men are from Mars and women are from Venus, but that's how it was. The gentleman is not sure of his emotions. He vacillates between, oh, I love you, and please leave me and move on. Now, in a situation like that, the lady is unable to really get any sort of surety of how or what their life is going to be like. Her expectation is that the gentleman is going to show her love, show her that she's important, show her that she matters, etc. Now, when I was speaking to her and all of this came out, that's when I asked her, do you understand his fears? Do you know where he's coming from? Oh, yeah, he had a bad marriage and he had a bad relationship, and all his relationships in the past have only been hurtful. Okay, so you know the facts, but do you know what those facts have done to him? When you know what are the fears those create for him, then your response to him will also be different. Your ability to understand that he is not responding or not expressing his love because he himself is so fearful of being hurt again and not being able to come out of that pain, that he's unable to show you the love that you feel you deserve. It becomes a symbiotic relationship, right? So when you look at the skills of empathy, assertive, effective communication, and extremely powerful, potent listening skills, which means listening from the other person's perspective rather than your own, you find that your own, and when you practice all of that, you find that your own emotional intelligence goes up a whole lot. How should I raise my kids to be more emotionally intelligent? Uh, I think the first thing is please teach them boundaries, how to set them, how to respect them. Please teach them about choices. The fact that they are not at the mercy of anything or anyone, but they have a choice. I'll give you a simple example. Your child is throwing a tantrum, doesn't want to eat what you've made. What is our usual response? Let me make something that you like. Don't do it. Sure, you're a mother or a father and you want to indulge your child and you want them to be happy, or you want them to get off your back so you can get your work done. So typically these days, what do we do with young children? We hand them our mobiles or our tablets and say, now you go do what you need to do. Don't chew my brain. Because you and I need the mental space because we have so much going on in the background, right? You're working, you're trying to make ends meet, you're trying to create the resources to give your child a good, happy, healthy, financially secure life. So, what you do now is you pass on the iPad to them. So, you've now given them something that's going to create a habit which you yourself are going to really, really pull your hair about in the next couple of years. Because then you will come back and say, I don't know what to do with this kid. He's always playing or she's always playing and they're not doing their homework, etc., etc. So, what you're doing right now is you're teaching them bad habits for the future. Instead of that, give them the choice. You can either eat this or you can stay hungry. So, your child will today, your child will say, I don't want to eat this. This is not nice. I don't wanna. Let them do all of that. Be steadfast. Put the food on the table. If they eat it, great, because they're going to get hungry eventually. They will eat it eventually. If they don't eat it, put it back in the fridge. Next day, give the same food. Um, That's a little bit of disciplining, yes, but it's also a whole lot to do with them understanding that they have choice. So they have boundaries, they have choice. And then when a child comes crying to you, let them cry. Don't tell them, don't cry. You're a grown up. You shouldn't cry for such small things. Don't do that. Let them cry. Once they have stopped howling and crying, ask them, what happened? How did it make you feel? Where and how did you feel it in your body? What could you have done differently? A few different questions. Ask them those questions, and you will be able to help them slowly and steadily understand that the emotion they're experiencing is because of something that got triggered in them. Help them see that. And having said all of this, remember this, your children are sponges, especially if they're tiny, especially if they're just around 14, 15 years of age. Children see, children do. If you can lead them by emotional intelligence yourself, which means don't react when somebody is saying something to you, don't show them your reactions, even through your facial expressions later on, children will do what they see you do. Different things. I hope that was a few different avenues for things you can do, Priyanka. Ensure you behave and express in a manner that you want your children to behave. And absolutely, children see, children do. Children are sponges. I don't normally do that. Thankfully, I give them closed options. Eat A or B. You can have this only on the weekend. Okay, that's a good way too. That's solid discipline there. You're so welcome, Priyanka. I'm glad it helped. Okay, great. So some things around emotional intelligence. We were all set and geared up to talk about emotional intelligence for women in the boardroom, but I hope just talk about emotional intelligence has helped whoever was listening in. Thank you so very much. Remember this, you may sometimes get labeled as being too emotional. If you're getting that feedback, listen to it and see what's going on. What do you need to change? You may equally get labeled as not being emotional enough. By the way, some of us also have this misplaced notion that, oh, I'm not emotional, I don't understand emotions. I don't have an emotional bone in my body. The only time you won't have emotions is either when you're 6 feet over or 6 feet under. That's the only time. As a human being, as long as you're alive, you will have emotions, you will express them. The good thing or the good news is that you have the ability to know what you're feeling and how you're expressing that feeling to yourself and to people around you. In the meanwhile, you're so welcome, Manish. So welcome, Ayushi and Priyanka. Thank you, Manish. In the meanwhile, remember, ladies and gentlemen, every single day is Women's Day. You need to break the bias every day, not just one day today. Don't ever forget that. Ladies, more power to you. Gentlemen, more power to you too. It's an equal world. We all need the power. Good luck. Thank you very much for joining in. It was a pleasure reading your questions and answering them. I hope to see you around in another session. Bye-bye. Okay, Team Creator, I'm going to leave this. Thank you very much.